Hello, San Francisco, and welcome once again to the Angelic Troublemakers. I'm your host, Alan Jones, and on today's program, Trump is drunk with pardon power. I'm bringing you this program this week based on uh, President Donald Trump's uh, pardons that he handed down this week to some well connected individuals. Now, many people who have followed the president's actions uh, should be suspicious of anything this president is doing when it is related to prison reform, justice reform, and his claim of he is fighting corruption. Now, I have a list, a short list of the 11 uh, people Donald Trump pardoned this week, and it really brings into question uh, what this president is all about. And I think that he has used his powers, uh, constitutional power, to grant pardon in a way that he needs to be not only reeled in, but we need to, for the sake of this country's uh, justice for all and fairness, though I don't really like that word, uh, in criminal justice system, we need to take back this power that was given to the president by our founding fathers back in 1787, and to look at how this president and past presidents have used this, if you will, perk of being president on the federal level. You know, I've been talking about pardons all year long. In fact, in December, the last day of December, I wrote a piece titled Middle Finger Pardons. Can we, the people, stop them? And what I called President Trump's pardons of this week are all middle finger pardons. Don't get me wrong, some of the people who he has pardoned are more than deserving of a pardon. However, let's read between the lines of what our president has done. On my screen here is junk bond king Michael Milken. Milken, many years ago, was called the junk bond king. What it is my understanding of this man is he was too smart for Wall Street and his own self. How? Because he knew so much about how Wall Street operated and how he can get over on certain things because of the loopholes or ways to hide certain things. Uh, he was called the junk bond king because he had a knack for taking junk bonds, which are basically high uh, yield and high risk bonds, and come out smelling like a rose. Well, in doing this, he cut a few corners, made a whole bunch of people rich, but he ended up doing 2 years of a 10-year prison term based on his shenanigans, if you will, in the stock market. Now, President Trump pardoned him when past presidents uh, Barack Obama, George Bush, 1 and 2, would not pardon this president. I mean, this convicted felon. Now, why did Donald Trump pardon Michael Milken? Well, many people who have been trying to get a pardon for this man, I think they did it for selfish reasons. Why? They knew that this man was so smart, they wanted him back in the Wall Street game so they could make more money off him. But because of his conviction, he was barred from the securities issue, to where, hey, he couldn't get away with, he couldn't get more people his profits, the profits that they had. Now, when I say that this president pardoned him, he's been out of prison for more than 10 years, and he's done great philanthropic work on subjects like cancer research. Well, that's easy when you got cancer. He came down with prostate cancer. And since he's worth $3 billion, he got some pretty good medical care, and he was able to, beat cancer. But the fact of the matter is I don't know where this dedication to helping in cancer research cures came before his prison term. So, though I know that he's done an awful lot of good works, I'm not all that convinced that this man should have moved ahead of the line when it comes to pardons. The next character, my buddy Eddie D. Eddie D. Bartolo Jr., the former owner of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, let me say something about Eddie D. I can't thank Eddie D enough for the 5 Super Bowl rings I enjoyed as a 49er fan. And this man as you see him standing behind his trophies, was responsible. This man treated his players with the greatest amount of respect. He spared no expense in taking care of them, and he basically got the most out of his players. And San Francisco got the most out of his leadership of the team. But why am I questioning his pardon? Well, first of all, let's talk just a little bit on why he is a convicted felon. Eddie D wanted a riverboat or a casino license in the state of Louisiana. But the governor at the time, Edwin Edwards, decided he wanted to extort money out of the owner of the 49ers to get this riverboat or this casino uh, permit. So when he proposed to Eddie D, it's gonna cost you. Instead of taking this extortion attempt to the FBI, Eddie D did the dumb thing and paid the money. The next day, he got his license. Well, what Eddie D didn't realize was the fact that, hey, the feds were listening in. And so he probably could have ended up with a casino license if he just played by the rules and refused to be extorted. But his greedy self, he allowed himself to be shaken down by the governor, former governor of Louisiana, and it cost him dearly. He didn't go to prison, but he was convicted of a felony. He paid a $1 million fine. He had to testify against Edwin Edwards and his son. And the NFL, as crooked as they are, or excuse me, as racist as they are, they kicked him out of the NFL. So he had to sell the team, more control of the team, to his sister. So, though this man, who I greatly appreciate for what he has done for the city of San Francisco and the San Francisco 49ers fans, hey, I know that this man has a good heart. But why was he moved to the top of the list in getting a pardon? Well, 3 years ago, Eddie D hosted a pre-inaugural ceremony or party for President Donald Trump. Well, if you're going to do something like that, you're going to stay on Donald Trump's mind. The next person. Oh my goodness. Rod Blagojevich, former governor of the state of Illinois. He too was caught up in a little extortion attempt. But wiretapping, he was caught trying to sell the seat that President Barack Obama was vacating when he became president. Well, you can't do that. And this unrepentant former governor of Illinois paid dearly. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison, of which I think he served 8 before he was released to this week with a pardon from President Donald Trump. But I ask you, why does Rod Blagojevich deserve to move up to the head of the list when it comes to pardons? Why? Because he's famous and Trump claims they did him wrong, but he was caught on tape, and his wife was on Fox News praising Trump while asking for a pardon for her husband. But I don't think that I would have gave him 14 years for his crimes. It was excessive, but there's an awful lot of people in prison with excessive crimes. I'm telling you, Donald Trump pardoned a woman who had a nonviolent drug conviction, served 20 years, and he pardoned her. But the fact of the matter is, she did 20 years on a nonviolent offense. And though she got her pardon, and I'm sure she's happy, and she's helping other people get their getting noticed by the president, Rod Blagojevich does not fit in that category of deserving to move ahead of the line, cut in line, to get a pardon from the president. But, if you have friends in high places, or your wife is praising the president on TV, that might do something to help you get a pardon. But then there's another one. Bernard Kerik. This used to be the police commissioner in New York City. But what did he do? Well, not only was he like the equivalent of the police chief here in San Francisco, this man was a tax cheat. And after 9/11, he, along with others, were praised for how they handled things then. I think that he was the driver for Rudy Giuliani. And so Rudy Giuliani noticed, well, his friend went to prison for some shenanigans, including cheating on his taxes. And get this, when some person donated a building to be used in support of those who suffered through 9/11 after effects, what did Bernard Kerik do? He used that building, which had a bed in it, to bang some of the women that he came across. Well, now, how in the world does that put you at the top of the list for a pardon when you take a piece of property that was donated to the city in support of 9/11 survivors who worked for the city, and you used the building, you saw a bed in it, and you took women in there to screw them? Give me a break. But Bernard Kerik, got to go to the top of the line. How is that? It was based on who he knew. Well, you have to look at the fact that clemency is the most powerful tool in our criminal justice system. And we must not think that this president is taking the power and using it for the American people's benefit. He is taking that power and using it for his own benefit. Now, I know some you're going to think, well, wait a minute, Alan. President Trump started the first Step Act. Well, that's nice, fine, and dandy. But let me tell you a little bit about the First Step Act. Did you know that First Step was an acronym? Now I'm going to bring up what the First Step Act is, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to explain a little something about it, if you will allow me to look at my phone here. Now I'm going to read what the First Step Act means. Now, though it's spelled capital F, IRST, first, capital S, TEP, it's an acronym for formerly incarcerated re-enter society, transformed safely, transitioning every person act. What the hell does that mean? Let me say it again. Formerly incarcerated, re-enter society, transformed safely, transitioning every person act. Now, I'm going to give you some highlights. Now, I pulled these up off of Wikipedia, and let me tell you, this program, which is supposed to help the formerly incarcerated in a federal system, let me show you, let me read to you what it does, the highlights, as per Wikipedia. This act, the First Step Act, reforms the federal prison system of the United States of America and seeks to reduce recidivism. An additional version of the bill, H.R. 5628, was sponsored by Rep. Doug Collins. And if you don't know who he is, I'm going to leave that alone. And passed the House of Representatives on May 22nd, 2018. A revised bill passed the U.S. Senate on December 18th. The act was signed by President Trump on December 21st, before the end of the 115th Congress. Now let me tell you something. The act, among many provisions, retroactively applies the Fair Sentencing Act. Now that's the good part. But then allows for employees to store their firearms securely at federal prisons. What does that got to do with First Step? Restricts the use of restraints on pregnant women. That is a no-brainer act, not a first step. Expands compassionate release. Well, okay, I don't know how that fits into First Step. For terminally ill patients. Places the prisoners closer to family in some cases. And, hold on. Authorizes new markets for federal prison industry. That's part of First Step? Give me a break. De-escalating training for correctional officers and employees. Well, I'm all for that. And improves feminine hygiene in prison. Now, you have to have an act signed by the President of the United States in 2018 to offer better feminine hygiene. Give me a break. Now, I understand that though it's under the title First Step Act, I mean, come on, people. This is a presidential pat on the back plan to get some brownie points for a man who couldn't care less about people who are incarcerated unless they are his friends, family, supporters, allies. And I'm saying that we need to uh, not be so fooled when the President of the United States is claiming to be a champion for prison reform, because it's just not true. Do I give him credit for first step? Yes. But the next step is not to pardon your buddies. It's to expand on the pardons of those who have waited in line. Now let me tell you something. There are 144,000 federal prisoners. The President of the United States only has say-so to pardon federal prisoners. There's a list of 13,000 prisoners, former prisoners, who are seeking clemency from the President. There's an office in the Department of Justice titled the Clemency Attorney's Office. And so when you look at the fact that this president selected his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to take a Department of Justice program and take control of it and put a panel of people together and try and come up with some people who need to be, who deserve a pardon. Well, you got a list of 13,000. So why do you need a panel to go through this list when you have a list of 13,000 who I can guarantee you they're not going to use? They're going to use people who grease the hands of the president and his family or kiss up to this administration, and those people will move to the top of the line. Of course, to make it look legitimate, they're going to sprinkle in a few legitimate pardon requests. But let me tell you something. I got two more pictures. Look at this. Roger Stone. This is one of the president's main men. He was just convicted this week. And he was he was just sentenced this week to serve 40 months for lying to Congress. Why was he lying to Congress? To cover up for his buddy, Mr. Pardon the Swamp, in the Russia probe against whatever they were doing. So, when you look at this Roger Stone, the president, with all of the pardons that he gave this week, those pardons were going to justify this pardon, which is forthcoming. Now, the president said he's not going to pardon his buddy Roger Stone. Well, that's a lie. And any of you silly enough to believe anything that comes out the president's mouth, I'll wait to say I told you so after he receives his pardon. But the President of the United States is not going to waste an opportunity to pardon this man who did him a golden favor by keeping his mouth shut. But that, my friends, is not what the power to pardon is for. It is for deserving individuals who have done something worthy of a pardon. Roger Stone is not worthy.